brutal murder of a Rhode Island socialite is raising questions about sex offender laws in Massachusetts and across the country. The suspect is a registered sex offender, and authorities were trying to put him away when the murder happened. MSNBC's Pat Dawson now with more.
The evidence suggests Alexandra Zapp fought desperately for her life, a struggle at this highway rest stop she was destined to lose. Charged in the killing, a man known all too well to Massachusetts authorities, Paul Leahy, a convicted rapist, a criminal who'd committed 3 sex-related offenses.
He is, without a doubt, a dangerous, violent, vicious man when it comes to women.
The young woman was on her way home in the early morning hours Thursday when she stopped to use the ladies' room. Police say Leahy, who worked at the service area's restaurant, confronted her with a knife. She was stabbed repeatedly. But the most shocking part of the story, a year ago, authorities here had all but predicted Leahy would strike again. The state parole board describing him as, quote, a sexual predator, a high risk to reoffend. After his release from jail, a local district attorney tried to have Leahy locked up under the state's law to confine serial sex offenders if they're believed likely to commit more crimes. But a judge denied the petition. Leahy was free, and 6 months later, authorities say his path crossed Alexandra Zapp's late at night with fatal results. Pat Dawson, NBC News, Boston.
Joining us now to talk about this is the Plymouth County, Massachusetts District Attorney Timothy Cruz. Mr. Cruz, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lester.
This Mr. Leahy is a man you were trying to put away before this crime as a sexually dangerous offender. You had a petition. Tell me his history, why you thought it was necessary to put him away even before this occurred.
Well, the defendant in this case had done time for a rape back in 1985 and actually done 13 out of the 15-year sentence that he had. Once he was released from there, however, he was rearrested on an operating under the influence and also a subsequent accosting allegation. He did receive time on those for his probation surrenders. He got a year in jail, and he also got the maximum amount of sentence that he could get in the accosting. We filed, because our office is very aggressive in these sexually dangerous cases, we filed a petition for civil commitment upon notification of his release. However, he had been released, and the case had actually been ongoing in Brockton Superior Court. It's unfortunate, however, that the crime that he was convicted of was not and is not part of the sexual dangerous statute here in Massachusetts. And in recent case law, it said you must be convicted and incarcerated on one of the delineated sex offenses.
So you're saying
the bottom line,
it's likely that that petition then would have failed anyway?
Absolutely. As a result of the recent case law, that petition would have failed.
How does it affect you personally, given the job you have, to try and put someone like this away and then to see this heinous crime committed against this poor woman?
Well, obviously, we need to be very aggressive in the pursuit of predators and predators who are going to be out there hurting the public. I think that's our job, and that's what we need to do. And that's why we are very aggressive as pertains to the STP statute, the Sexually Dangerous Person statute here in the Commonwealth. Notwithstanding that, I think we need to continue to pursue it. We need to make sure that the legislation is applicable and appropriate. And right now, hopefully that our lawmakers will put us in a position whereby we can make sure we pursue these individuals, and also that we make sure that monies are appropriated, resources are appropriated to our sexual offender review board so that hearings can be done in a timely fashion.
Has Mr. Leahy made any statements since his arrest suggesting whether he thought he was about to be put away?
I have not heard anything such as that per se. The statement, he did make a statement to the police as was set forth at his arraignment the other day. He also made statements right upon the time of his arrest by the state trooper who did a great job when he was in there that he had lost it, he had lost it.
Massachusetts does not have a death penalty statute. There is the option of trying to find some sort of federal prosecution. Have you found anything in that area that you may pursue?
Well, you're correct. Massachusetts does not have a death penalty. We certainly have had conversations with the federal authorities. However, I really don't want to get into that at this point as pertains to our conversations.
Is there a greater lesson here to the criminal justice system, to the courts, to lawmakers here that you believe is pertinent?
We need to make sure that we take people who hurt children, people that hurt women, people that hurt anybody off the street, and we need to be very aggressive in our pursuit of these individuals.
Mr. Cruz, my thanks to you for joining us today. We do appreciate having you on.
Thank you very much.
Let's bring in MSNBC analyst Mike Barnacle now, who first talked about this case on our broadcast last Friday. Mike, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Lester, glad to be here.
I'm curious, in your mind, is this a failure of the criminal justice system, or is this the awful price we pay for a system that balances the rights of the accused?
Well, I think it's probably a bit of both, Lester. I mean, we have a criminal justice system, not just in Massachusetts, but throughout the country, that really doesn't talk to one another. In this state, there are 17,000 names of sexual offenders frozen on a list. They cannot be released to the general public because of a Massachusetts Supreme Court decision, a recent decision, saying that the rights of these convicted felons, prior felons, the privacy rights have to be taken into consideration before those names are released. So you've got a case where local police are sometimes prevented from finding out, who's moving into the town because, and your neighbor can't know across the street who's living across the street, perhaps a repeat offender, so you just don't know. The other interesting aspect of this, Lester, and it happens over and over and over again, I've been writing about these things for 30 years, is that this is a wonderful young woman. There's no doubt about it. A tremendous loss to everyone who knew her and loved her. There's no doubt about that. But whenever it's a fairly prominent or a fairly affluent woman, it makes the headlines. We talk about it on TV. And yet these cases, the deaths of women and children in brutal, terrible conditions by convicted felons with prior records, it goes on each and every day all across this country. We pay attention to the affluent, but we don't pay enough attention to the everyday failings of the system.
And there's no defending that necessarily, but the fact that attention is paid to a case like this doesn't have the potential to affect change.
It does have the potential to affect change. Lester, I think in your interview just prior to with the district attorney from Plymouth County, this is the sort of thing that gets enough publicity, generates enough interest and enough outrage that change might be affected, and that's a good thing.
Mike Barnacle, we appreciate it. Mike, we'll see you later on.
Thanks, Lester.
Straight ahead, the Dow just keeps going down, down, down.